Hey guys, it's Adam. I hope you're doing well. This week's video is going to be a little different than what we normally do. Given what's happened over the past week or so and all of the conversations that are happening around it, I felt like it was time to do kind of an unscripted conversation type approach to unpacking the loss of Taylor Hawkins and how it affects fans of his and fans of the Foo Fighters, as well as how it personally affects us as musicians and parents and that kind of thing. So this video may not be as clean and well edited as some of the other ones, and it may be a bit more stream of consciousness, but I felt like it was important to talk through it really just for my own benefit, and hopefully it might be helpful to other people and to help them process what they're feeling about it. So I heard that Taylor passed away on Saturday. I didn't have anything planned. It was just a normal kind of run-of-the-mill weekend day, and it really just kind of like knocked me for a loop. I was completely out of it for the rest of the day because I was just thinking a lot about the impact of losing a guy like Taylor Hawkins. He was incredibly well-loved in the music community. He was always one of those guys that showed up on shows, and he was always like the funny, high-energy one. And not only did he possess this kind of like razor wit, but he was also an immensely talented player. And so he didn't just have the respect of his peers and millions of fans around the world, but he was also like a fun person to be around. So when the news broke, seeing all of these tweets and Instagram posts of these famous rock stars who had shared the stage with him or just were friends and just sharing stories and stuff, it really warmed my heart, but it made his loss all the more impactful because he wasn't a guy that seemed like he was in trouble. I know that there have been deaths of other famous musicians in the past, guys like Scott Weiland and Lane Staley, who really impacted me personally, but it was a different kind of sadness when it happened because it felt like those things were inevitable, whereas it seemed like Taylor had gotten his situation sorted out and that, he was looking forward to a bunch of stuff coming up. And it wasn't like some pit of despair kind of moment. And I also want to address that we don't have any idea what actually happened with Taylor. I've been reading a lot and doing some research around the information that's already out there. And apparently things like urine toxicology reports are qualitative but not quantitative. So the drugs that they found in his system showed up in that testing, but apparently they don't have any indication of the amounts of those things. And so having things like antidepressants or benzodiazepines and opioids in your system are fairly normal. Like if I kicked the bucket today, I would have amphetamines in my system because I take Adderall. So it doesn't necessarily indicate that drugs were a factor. There is some talk about him having an enlarged heart, which may be the main cause. We don't really know. They won't know until they get, full toxicology back, which is blood work and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there. This isn't necessarily like a drugs are bad situation. It may be part of it, but we honestly just don't know yet. But getting back to what I was saying, it wasn't a situation where it was kind of coming down the highway at us. The Foo Fighters just put out a great record and they put out this movie and they were about to just play a bunch of shows and we were just eager to see them out again. And I know that I was looking at tickets for the show closest to me, which I believe is in North Carolina, because I wanted to take my son to go see his first rock concert, and I felt like the Foo Fighters would have been a good opportunity to do that. And now I can't, and that's really sad. The other thing to think about is that because we have grown up with the Foo Fighters kind of being around, the first record came out when I was 12 or 13, and they've been playing ever since. So they just kind of felt like this ubiquitous thing in cultures, and I've definitely put off seeing the Foo Fighters because I think I've said it a dozen times at this point. I'll catch them the next time. Well, I waited. and now I may not get that opportunity. And so there's another layer to mourning that, because I missed something really important and I took it for granted, and I may not have the opportunity to see that again. I know it can feel weird about mourning or grieving the loss of a musician or a celebrity that we don't personally know. I don't have any firsthand accounts of meeting Taylor. I know a lot of people do, but experts say that we grieve the loss of celebrities and musicians because they do have a specific kind of impact on our lives. The psychological term is called a parasocial relationship, which is a one-sided relationship where we kind of project what we think they are like onto these figures. It feels kind of odd, but it is a very important thing. For some people, the Foo Fighters represent a particular moment in their life. There's a nostalgia tied to it. There might be a record that really helped you get through a tough period of time. I know that for me, There's Nothing Left to Lose and The Color and the Shape were both really important records because they kind of were benchmarks in particular personal moments in my life that I really resonated with. And so those records are important to me for, personal reasons. And the fact that Taylor was a part of those bonds him to me directly. And we tend to immortalize musicians through nostalgic moments of our youth and kind of sometimes forget that they're actual people. And they're embedded in this particular era of our lives that means a lot. So when a famous musician dies, a part of our youth goes with it. It's the closing of a chapter. It's a realization of our aging. It's a moment where we realize that things aren't going to stay the way that they are, and that we're also getting older. One of the things that hit me the hardest is the fact that Taylor, being 50 years old, he's about 10 years older than I am, but he left a wife and 3 kids. That's something that hits me pretty hard, because the thought of not being around to see my kids grow up is something that, is really powerful and scary. And it's an uncomfortable thought I don't really like to dwell on or unpack, if I'm being honest. And I also think about the friendships that he had with the guys in the band. I don't think it's any mystery that the friendship that Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins had is one of the legendary partnerships in rock and roll history. It's the same as Mick and Keith, or Steven and Tyler and Joe Perry. I think a lot of us are sitting here going, I wonder how Dave's doing. I recently finished reading Dave's book, The Storyteller, and I was telling my wife that I don't know if I would feel the way that I feel now as strongly if I hadn't read the book, because it's really clear in the way that Dave writes about his friend that their relationship and their friendship was really impactful. And I'm not sure how you move on from a partnership like that when somebody's gone. It feels almost insurmountable. Like, what would the Foo Fighters without Taylor Hawkins look like? I don't have an answer for that. I don't think anybody does. And the thought of having to go out on stage and play songs that you made with these people who aren't there anymore, and how painful that's going to be, it just seems insurmountable. It seems unbearable. I don't know how I would be able to handle that. And I think about my friendships with my bandmates and how much meaning I put into those. And the thought of losing one of those guys feels really, really hard to process. So there's so many layers to this kind of loss, and I don't know how to equate it to any other one, because every time we lose an artist who makes great music, that loss is felt heavily. But I think about the death of John Lennon, where it came out of nowhere, and he was in the middle of this kind of creative renaissance, and the feeling of missing out, the feeling of loss, not only for their body of work, but what was on the horizon, what they still hadn't accomplished yet. It just makes me feel sad. I don't really have the words to describe what this one feels like. But it feels different. And it feels different because of how much the Foo Fighters mean to me, and what I have gotten from watching them perform and just seeing Dave and Taylor do interviews and talk shows together like they are the best of friends. And I'm just sad that I'm not going to get to see that anymore. It's just a shame. It's really too bad. And I wish I had better words around it, but I think it's important to acknowledge that it's okay to feel a certain way when somebody passes away, even if we don't know them personally. We should grieve them the way that we would grieve our loved ones. We should take time to process the emotions. Give yourself space to feel the pain of that loss and process their life as you experienced it. If it feels okay, put one of the records on and just listen to it. Maybe listen to it for the first time in a long time, or try to listen to it with a more critical ear and really appreciate the contribution they had to that album. And just let it wash over you. Like, if emotions come, just let them. I think it's really easy for us to try to suppress how we're feeling or not be in the moment and allow something powerful to wash over us. But if it makes you sad, be in that. And be okay with being in that emotion until it kind of passes. Use it as an opportunity to reflect on your own life. When a famous musician dies, it can be a sobering realization that we are also not going to live forever. It may be a wake-up call for a lifestyle change. I'm not sure if Taylor knew that he had a heart condition, but if it's been a while since you've been to a doctor or you've been putting it off, go ahead and make that appointment. If you were a fan of a musician who ended their life, maybe it's time to start unpacking your own emotional, psychological damage and get into counseling. Use that grieving time to get in touch with the way that your body feels, the way that your emotions are linked to certain things. Try to make these tragic moments learning opportunities, because there's really nothing else to do with them. I think it's so easy for us to kind of push things aside and not deal with them. And I definitely have not had the urge or honestly the willingness to put a Foo Fighters record on, to listen to it, or to watch any of these videos that people have been posting, because I just don't have the energy right now to process how sad I'm going to get watching this guy who is so full of life and so talented and so loved performing at the top of his game the day before he died. I don't know how I can handle that right this moment. But I know I need to, and I know that time will come. And I'm aware of that. And hopefully you get to that point too. Maybe you've already gotten through that and you're on the other side of it, and this is just rehashing of things you've already done. But for any of us who are still kind of reeling in the moment, I hope this is helpful. I hope this is something that you needed to hear and something that gets you through this particular season. No pitches or promotions this week. I just hope you're doing okay. And if you're not doing okay, I'm going to put some contact information in the description for you to reach out to. Take care of one another, and I'll see you next time.